Hello everybody, Instructive Chess Classics continue today with a beautiful game of Vassily Smyslov. In this series, we are looking at a clean win by a stronger player and we'll see plans unfolding in a very simple way. This avoids the modern chaos. If you watch modern games, it's full of subtlety and chaos. It's difficult to extract the right lessons. But in this series, folks, I compile those games mostly from the world champions against lower rated players, slightly lower rated players, where we'll see how they are playing those people and how they are implementing plans as simple as possible. So we are seeing a plan unfolding in a very clean way. So let's see how this game unfolds for Smyslov with the white pieces. He chooses the English opening with c4. His opponent is a two-time Polish champion, Doda. This game was played in 1965. So we are going through this, one of the main lines of English. I won't spend so much time in the subtleties of the move order. I will quickly present you to the middle game position that evolved to this symmetrical pawn structure very, very soon. Smyslov already signals the bishop placement on g2, and the entire game will revolve around the bishop on g2 versus bishop on c8. And please pay attention to this theme. That is a central theme for the entire game. Okay? Queen a5, bishop d2. I'm pinning the knight. White already has, let's say, the queenside pawn majority here. With 3 versus 2. That'll be very relevant already here, by the way. He chases the bishop away with a3 after bishop e7. Instead of playing bishop g2, there's also this pawn that is hanging. He does go b4 in this position. So Smyslov already starts rolling the queenside pawns, highlighting potentially c5 ideas before deciding on the bishop's location. Knight c6, first chase the queen away with c5, and now white gets this 3 pawns on the queen side. That also has a limiting effect on the black pieces. Right now, for example, the bishop on c8 cannot move. Black needs to make moves d6 or b6 to be able to get the pieces out. And for the moment, right, look how he repelled the enemy pieces on the queen side. And now, of course, he goes bishop g2, and the entire game will revolve around these 2 pieces, folks. Knight e5, black is sort of wasting time with the knight move, but also anticipating these 2 moves. Smyslov, of course, castle short, and then comes d6, the only way for black to really, right, play this position, because that pawn was a backward pawn, and he's now challenging the pawn on c5. And after takes, we end up in a symmetrical pawn structure. This is the first interesting moment to observe here, folks. You see, it's a symmetrical pawn formation. What is the only difference between 2 positions? And if you look deeper, you will see the bishop on g2 versus the bishop on c8, right? That's the basic imbalance that also repeats itself in so many different openings. For example, in the Catalan opening, that's also a very pervasive pattern. If black doesn't solve the bishop problem, black will always be slightly worse in this position. So it's very instructive to see how Smyslov outplays two-time Polish champion from this position. Queen e2, connecting his rooks, also controlling that knight, right? A multi-purpose move. Again, knight c4, knight d3 is in the air, just queen e2, stopping all counterplay, connecting rooks. Rook d1, rook c1 is coming, and white is easy play right now, right? Easy placement for his pieces. a6, again, he wants to maybe slowly play this position with rook b8, b5, but you see, it's not that easy at all for black. He also needs to deal with moves like knight b5 in this position. So already here, right, rook d1, and white's game is much more freer than black. Black is still having issues with development on the queen side, and in a symmetrical structure, that gives white a stable edge already from this position. Queen e7, and here comes a nice move e4. You see, that's a final point of white's plan here. e4, placing a pawn in the center. It looks like I'm blunting my bishop, but that's only momentary, because white has a long-term play in this position, long-term plan. And already here, maybe you can ask yourself, which plan would you choose for white in this position? Maybe that's the first moment that you can stop the video here, folks, and ask yourself, how would you treat this middle game position with the white pieces? Okay? So bishop e3, of course, comes to mind as a natural candidate, but then you allow moves like knight g4, you see? So Smyslov first place, can you guess it? Yes, the prophylactic h3, it's a very common move in those structures, just controlling those knights and preparing bishop e3 and also creating a loop for the king, right? Another very small multi-purpose move that keeps the edge. Bishop a7, that was the whole point of black, in fact. He wants to activate the bishop this way, but this bishop is the main problem for black, right? Bishop e3. Right now there is no more knight g4. Smyslov improves the bishop and defends the knight on d4. Bishop d7. Well, that's the only way for the bishop to move out, right? But still, white is keeping an advantage. Why? Can you please stop the video here, folks, and tell me the plan for white? I want you to form a plan. How would you treat this position with the white pieces? What will be your next two moves if you're playing like Smyslov? If you give time to black, he will solve his problems, of course, right? Rook c8, rook d8 is coming, and black will have no major problems. But Smyslov strikes in a symmetrical pawn formation, f4, right? Chase away that knight. Now we see the final point of h3. There is no knight g4, so the knight has to go backwards. But it doesn't even end here. What's the next move for white? That connecting to the move f4. Of course, guys, white goes e5. White doesn't let black in pushing e5. White also activates the bishop. White also hits the knight on f6, right? So you see, in a symmetrical pawn formation, white's initiative started first. And that's a game changer, by the way, right? But just going back here, it's a symmetrical pawn formation. If given time, black has no problems. In such positions, time advantage becomes even more important. And here, Smyslov proves his point, right? e5, another tempo on the knight. Well, knight e5 is not possible because it loses a pawn for black. So knight e8, you see. And black's pieces are cramped in this position. White gained more ground. White pieces are much more active as a result of the move e5. And here, folks, Smyslov makes another great move here. Another Smyslovesque move in this position that intensify the advantage. Can you please start the video and find this nice positional move for white in this position? Simple chess, simple chess. You're a great player, folks. If you found Smyslov's knight retreat, knight b3. I love seeing such moves. Knight retreats are difficult to spot, but once you see deeply why a master, world champion, plays this move, I guess now you see some points, right? First things first, he's offering a bishop trade because after the bishop trade, white will intensify the control of those dark squares, right? Black has dark square weaknesses on the queen side, and trading that bishop, right? That bishop was a border guard of those dark squares. Trading that bishop intensifies white's control of c5 and b6 already from this position. Plus, now you see the main point of knight b3, right? This knight starts fighting for the c5 square. Just look how problematic that square is for black in this position. From c5, that knight would put pressure on the weakness on b7 and would start cooperating with the bishop on b7. Again, please take a step back and evaluate this position, folks. It's a symmetrical pawn structure, but white has a clear advantage, maybe 2+2 already, according to Stockfish. Well, it's equal material. How come? How come, right? If you look deeper, it's about the pieces and the weaknesses, folks. Just look at the white pieces. All of them, almost all of them, are better than the black counterparts. Black has a weakness on b7 that's exploitable, right? That's exploitable because all these moves are coming. Yet, despite this being a symmetrical structure, black is suffering. There is no easy way out for black. Also, given the space restriction, look at those black pieces, right? You see the effect of the pawn move e5, and already here, black is long suffering in this position. The master, without going for crazy complications, obtained a clear advantage against 2 times Polish champion. Knight c7 is on the board. Here again, guys, can you please find Smyslov's next move? There are 2 very good moves in this position. Maybe you will choose the other one. But given what we've seen so far, Smyslov being a very technical player at heart, which move do you think he chose in the actual game? You're a great player, folks, if you came up with the move Queen c5. Exchange virtuoso, the art of exchanging pieces. He says, you know what? That's your only active piece, and I'm offering a trade on c5, and I want to win this technical endgame in an easiest possible way, right? Just look. Now it also connects to this earlier knight b3 idea. I want to invade on c5, I want to get a knight on c5, and I want to simply play the symmetrical pawn structure against your weaknesses. Yeah, bishop c8 is the only move to guard the pawn on b7. But now comes the next phase, guys. Next phase is very, very nice as well. You see, just take a step back again. Symmetrical pawn structure, equal material. But once you look deeper, white is already better, purely because of piece activity, but also because of the weaknesses in the position, right? So b6 is still a relevant weakness, and is there a way for white to exploit that? In other words, can you please stop the video and find Smyslov's next move that revolves around this dark square weaknesses, especially on b6. You're a great player, folks. If you found the move knight a4, this knight simply wants to go to b6 and invade that juicy outpost. You see the connection with the earlier exchange of bishop a7, dark squares become weakened, and now the master is simply exploiting those weakened dark squares by simply trading pieces and by simply utilizing those squares for his knights. Simple chess. Imagine after knight b6, black's position will collapse. Black is already suffering this position. By the way, knight e4 would not be so great. Maybe that's also a logical move because you allow knight d5, right? You don't want to allow this. This knight is a good piece for black and it will keep the position intact for the moment. So you see, that's also a multi-purpose move because this way you're stopping knight d5s because I will just simply take twice in that position and I'm activating all my pieces on their ideal squares. a5 was the game continuation, folks. I mean, black needs to do something, right? Needs to do something on the queen side. If he, for example, goes rook a7, that's a terrible move because of the knight b6. You see the problems they are facing. And if black goes knight a8 in this position, looks so ugly. You can even do this. Oh my god. And if black ever takes your knight here, look at this rook on a7, guys. Look at the buried piece on a7. This game is completely finished. The bishop cannot move, the rook cannot move. This rook has no squares. I mean, it's incredibly ugly for black. And of course, this was the reason, right, that black wants to avoid rook a7 for the moment, where he goes a5. At least he's counting on the fact that b5 will be answered with the move knight takes b5 in this position. But Smyslov jumps directly to b6 and proves his point, of course, right? And after rook a7, this rook is paralyzed anyways. Now Smyslov finds a nice tactical solution here. Please stop the video here, folks. Can you please stop the video and find a sequence that wins a pawn for white in this position? Tactics flow from good positions in chess. White built up a beautiful position so far, activated all of their pieces, and from those positions, tactics flow naturally. You're a great player if you found Smyslov's move, human solution, knight takes c8, rook takes c8, and what's the next move? How do we exploit this? Yes, knight takes b7, and now the bishop starts shooting on the loose knight on c6, which means white is gaining a single pawn, right? That was the game continuation. Smyslov win an extra pawn, also with 10 pawn the rook, so black has no time for this, right? After rook b6, Smyslov plays a human move, bishop d7, 10 pawn the rook, so I don't lose my pawn. The next move, very simple chess, rook b8. Here, Smyslov again, he doesn't want to push b5 because knight takes b5 is on the board. He doesn't want to take on a5 either to create a big pawn, but he first of all activates the worst place piece, the which square? Of course, rook c1. He activates the rook with tempo on the knight, and once the knight moves, he simply pushes b5, and now the pawn is protected. White has a single pawn, clear extra pawn, with no compensation for black, and he obtained a winning endgame directly. And the game finished like this: g6, a4, protected pass pawn on b5. White has a clear advantage in this position, clear winning advantage. Bishop c6, very simple chess. I want to grab one more pawn. Black is helpless. He tried h4, but Smyslov converts this endgame naturally. Even here, right? Just king g2. I will also take your pawn. Extra pawn for white. Beautiful rooks. This pawn is paralyzing the black rooks. Black has no chance. And exchange virtuoso, great world champion Smyslov converts this advantage by a series of checks. King e6, rook c5. Very simple chess. I want to also maybe exchange rooks at some point. White has 2 extra pawns and also beautiful rooks, right? That's just too much for black. King f5, rook f7 check, rook f4 check, and after rook f6, black in fact resigned this position. Black is no compensation. Now this pawn is also hanging. If you ever take my rook and play like this, then you see the final phase of the game, guys. b6, rook f6, and please stop the video and find the winning line for white. There's one move that is based on very short calculation, 3-ply calculation, that wins the game for white. It's your turn, folks. White to play and give me two very short and winning lines for white, please. You're a great player if you found the move b7, and if rook b6, then comes rook b5, and if rook f8, then comes rook c8. Can you see it, folks? My pawn wants the queen, and the rook only has two options to stop, but against this move, I have a very nice rook b5, and after takes, my pawn is queening, of course, and after rook f8, I have this very nice pattern, rook c8, and I will queen my pawn on the next move, right? It's a beautiful finish of this game that, to my mind, it was one of the nicest games of Vassily Smyslov. I think the key moment is already here. We achieve this symmetrical pawn formation, and you see how a master simply outplays a very strong player in a very efficient and nice way. To me, the key moments are this in this game, right? How he forms a plan of e4 followed by h3 followed by f4. Black just has no time to consolidate because of their bad pieces. This gives white a crucial tempo, f4, e5, and now space advantage, much better pieces, is already giving white an advantage, but you see how he exploits this. Knight b3 is a star move, folks. A star move. I made a chessable course about this. The art of exchanging pieces. White exchanges those bishops to exploit dark square complex weaknesses. Yeah, the entire dark square complex on the queen side will become weakened after the bishop trade, and knight is start eyeing c5 already. This knight is getting ready for b6 already, right? You see it. You see how masters are always attuned to the weaknesses in the position, and they are basing their decisions to exploit those long-term weaknesses in the position. This game is so instructive also to show us that dimension of chess. Even here, the art of exchanging pieces. Smyslov wants to simply win the endgame as simple as possible with zero counterplay, right? Let them destroy themselves. That's how we win against weaker opposition. You don't go for complications. You want to win the game as simple as possible using your chess understanding, using your endgame skills and piece play, right? Weakness awareness and so on. That's a beautiful model game to also understand how to play those symmetrical structures, Catalan kind of structures with bishop on g2 versus bishop on c8. Black never had a single chance in the entire game to equalize, right? White was always putting pressure. Knight a4 is a star move as well, guys. Look at this. Knight b6, knight c5. Those knights are cooperating so nicely against the targets. And once this is on the board, the black pieces are just paralyzed, right? And you see, this is also a beautiful moment. Tactics flow from good positions. Once white's a beautiful position like that, he's finding a tactical solution that wins material, right? That's also how you understand there's a full connection between the middle game to a tactical solution, and also here, right? Even here, how he converted the extra pawn in this position. Full activation, and then keeping the extra pawn and never giving black any chance to murky the waters and complicate the matter. Very simple chess, extra pawn, right? Better king, better rooks, and until the very end, Smyslov kept full control, never gave any counterplay to his weaker opponent. And that's why this game is an instructive chess classics series, folks. And I hope you loved the video. Please give me a like and subscribe if you liked it. Please give me feedback on how you found this game. Smyslov is one of my favorite world champions. He is also called Hand because his hand knew the right moves. He didn't even need to use so much deep calculation. His intuition for the game was amazing, and you can also understand why, right? What an intuitive player he was. By looking at this single game, you can understand his style of playing chess. I was always mesmerized by his style, and I'm sure you got the right lessons from this game, folks. To drill similar concepts you see in this game, please check my chessable course, The Art of Exchanging Pieces. That's exactly what you will train in that course. Very similar motifs, and you'll start outplaying your opponents like Vassily Smyslov. Bye bye.